Hello and welcome to today's episode of Absolutely Not. I am your host, Katrina Stroll, and I am dedicated to providing examples of setting personal boundaries at work and the vocabulary needed to name harm in those spaces. That vocabulary includes words like harassment, abuse, and racism. These words and their definitions can be found on my website on my resources page. So feel free to reach out to my website and learn more about the words you can use to define harm in your space. Today's episode is titled Documenting Workplace Disrespect. As someone who has worked in HR, we know that documentation is so very important. And this message is brought to you today by a very important special guest, Joangel Concepcion. Ooh, she's the founder of Track and Assess, a mobile tool that helps keep track of unwelcome behavior, uncomfortable situations, and overall wellness in a secure private place. Yes, she spent many years informing millions of people throughout the United States as a top market journalist for NBC and Fox affiliates. Ooh. During her career, she reported on a range of important national news, including the arrival of the Ebola virus, gun control, and the Sandy Hook massacre. Ooh. Her experience on and off air gives Joangel the knowledge and expertise to motivate any individual, organization, or business to make positive changes in the workplace. She is committed to combining her media skills and passion for workplace fairness to help and put an end to bullying, harassment, discrimination, and racism worldwide. Wow, thank you so much for being here today.
You're welcome. I am so happy to be here with you. It's a pleasure.
Right. You are the founder of Track and Assess, which is amazing. And your title of your episode today is Documenting Workplace Disrespect. What pushed you towards this mission and this title?
Well, it's so funny because when you read, I was a journalist back in 2015. It's been a while, and I still tell people that I had that experience because it's obviously it's so much of who I am, and who I was is so much of who I am. But it's also I should have put in there as well that I am a toxic workplace survivor. That I own that title because of the work I'm doing now, and the reason why I created this app is because I was in a really bad place at the end of my journalism career, where I worked for a company that, that really textbook style, which we'll discuss, bullied, harassed, everything, me, while I was just trying to do my work, and inform the people and do all these wonderful things. And, I'll never get tired of really talking about it because it kind of I want people to know the depth of my passion for this app. But I think the main goal is to help everyone document. You mentioned HR, I don't believe HR is our friends all the time. They're very nice people that work for HR. And I know a lot of people are probably going to get mad at me for saying that. But at the end of the day, you do have to protect yourself. And I found that while I was journaling and doing all these things to document, it gave me the power and clarity that I needed at the time. Now, fast forward, it's hard to go back on all your notes sometimes. There's, especially when you're in that situation and it's your vision's clouded and there's so much going on and all these emails are coming in and you're trying to just kind of, get through the day. And on top of this, you're trying to work and do good at work, not just, deal with harassment and how you're going to deal with it. So I created this app to kind of make it easy for people because I know that I needed something like that. And now that we're in 2021, it's, let's get rid of the pen and paper here. I couldn't even read my own handwriting. I was like, this is terrible. So I just wanted to make it easier. And I know that it's effective because it worked for me. So.
And I cannot thank you enough for not only standing in your truth of what happened to you and the behavior that you were a victim to, but also saying, okay, I no longer want this to occur anymore, or I want people to have a resource that they can turn to, and putting that into your app. That's so amazing.
I appreciate that.
What was kind of like the first step of you saying, okay, I'm going to create a resource for people to use?
Well, I think a lot of times in life things just come full circle, and that this whole app and just connecting with people like you, all the experts that I've met around the world, it's just a full circle thing for me. And I think it's kind of my purpose to help people in that way, because I was so caught off guard by everything that happened to me. I mean, I lost my hair, really. I gained weight. I was depressed, anxious. I couldn't go to sleep. And mind you, it wasn't because I was reporting on really difficult topics, immigration, rapes, murders, fires. It was because my workplace really dwindled me down to like a toothpick, a really confident person on air and off. They really did dwindle me down to a toothpick. And I thought for so long that I allowed that to happen. You can't stop these people. You kind of have to set boundaries. Like, it's so true. It's so important. That's why I believe so much in this podcast. You do have to set boundaries and kind of, and I think the message too with this app is saying, you do have a lot more control than you do, or a lot more power. And I want people to feel empowered with it. You can literally, you journal every day. You can upload pictures, documents, mean emails. I always tell people, like, save your mean emails, because at the end of the day, they're saving all of your emails. And if God forbid you were to get fired, you really don't have access to that anymore. So I always say, take a snapshot, upload. We just added a voice memo feature, and you can also every day, if you don't have time, you just go and pick an emoji, your mood emoji, how you felt that day. And then after a certain period of time, you export your report, and there's everything there for you. I wish, and hold on, I want to show you that. So I think I might have showed you this before, but this is what I did when I was in my last place in Dallas. This is what I did, and I documented everything. Like, this is basically the app, but I wish I could press a button and then have everything organized for me. And it can also, keep a pulse on my mental health. So I tried to make it. The problem is that I looked at this and I said, what am I going to do with this? Like, I have everything here. I can't read my handwriting. There's nothing I could do with this. But at the time, like, let's say I wanted to look back a week, a month, it helped me feel empowered. I don't want to confuse that. But if I wanted to take this to a lawyer at the end of my time there, how am I supposed to hand this to them? I understand it, and I know what I went through. So the app essentially just organizes everything for you, your thoughts, your observations. And I know that, as you know, around the world, journaling is really powerful. And so you're literally journaling, logging your mental health, and saving evidence at the same time.
Awesome.
And that's what really drove me to really do this, because I knew that I could have benefited from something like this back then. So 5 years in the making, I've been researching it. The tech world is insane. I'm just a former journalist, and I wrote a book once, and where do I fit in the tech world? But it ended up being it motivated me the more I learned about tech and how easy this could be for people, especially people who literally feel like they don't have a tool or anything like that. If they were to download the app and just start logging, and maybe just feel like they're not crazy because of the things that they're logging, because I know that you've been in situations, it feels like a tornado. You're like, are these people really doing this to me? Like, is it all in my head? I don't know. No, it's not all in your head. And when you look back at your own notes, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe this is really happening. So I think that's what really pushed me, is looking at my notes that I couldn't read, and knowing that I couldn't really take it anywhere, because there were things that did I document enough? Did I, it was just a mess. So I kind of took it as, let's just keep this going, bring this full circle, and let me just go ahead and help other people. And I don't know if I'm going to be in a toxic workplace again. I don't know that. So I'm going to be prepared too. And now I have a daughter. She's turning 9 months soon. I want her to protect herself. So this is right now, even though it's full circle for me in my heart, it's really about helping other people.
I love that. I love it. One of the phrases that you used to describe your time in that toxic workplace was dwindled down to a
Yeah.
toothpick.
Yeah.
That really chokes me up. Like even saying it chokes me up because I know exactly how that feels.
Yeah. It's,
What was, I know you described the time there and kind of thinking like, oh, this is all me, this is all me. What was the last straw to make you realize I am now toothpick, that they have dwindled down?
well, I knew that I was being, I was affected by the things that were going on. You know, I'm very, I was and still am in tune with myself. And I said, you know, this can't just be me. Like, this is insane. And again, looking back on my journals and stuff, I was like, and I track their patterns. And that's a good thing about the app too, is that you can track patterns, things you see, things they're doing to you. And you're like, oh, they did this for 3 weeks in a row. They stopped for 2 weeks and then they did it again. You know, it's crazy. So the last straw for me was when I couldn't sleep. And I went to the doctor and I said, I can't sleep. I have blood in my stool. You know, I'm stressed out and I'm anxious. And then he was like, you know, if you're waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning every night or whatever, I think it's time to take some antidepressants. And I really had a moment, because I don't look down on antidepressants. Absolutely not. That's not what I'm trying to say. But I always thought in my head, and part of my ignorance to people out there, but I always thought if I was to be put on antidepressants, it would be for some really serious shit, you know, like maybe my mother passed away, something really that isn't my career that I worked my ass off for, that I finally got to the place I wanted to be, and I'm being put on antidepressants because the management team is like disrespecting me left and right. No, that's not the way my life is supposed to go. And you know, every time I paid my student loans, I was like, gosh, like I have to remind her, I worked my ass off to get here through college. I excelled in my career, and here I am, and I'm being dwindled down. And that was the breaking point for me. And I said, I'm not going to do that. And I said, you know, maybe one day I'll need it in my life, and I'll be more than happy to take it. But at this moment, that's not where I don't think I should. I think I've let this go on for too long for me to get to this point, you know? And so I kind of tried to just take control of the situation in many ways. Like you know, you talk about all the time. I set a lot of boundaries. I try to make things go my way and try to make myself comfortable about the rest of my time there, to survive, complete survival mode. And also I was trying to like grow back my hair and get some sleep and, you know, and lose some weight. I gained like 25 pounds, but you know, it was just it just felt like like a heavy, awful place to be in. And again, I know that there's so many people that had it so much worse than I do, and that scares me. When I left the business, I started a toxic workplace forum on Facebook just to kind of connect with people about it. And I could not believe. I mean, it's definitely an epidemic. Yeah, it's terrible because even when I go to the international conferences for workplace bullying and harassment, I mean, you have experts from around the world researching this and in so many formats. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this has to stop. So I'm wondering, you know, Me Too had its wave and it still has, it's still there. I'm not saying that it's gone away, but Me Too, you saw how it just like blindsided everyone, like this is happening, and it still does, and I love it. But you know, it's time for the workplace Me Too kind of movement, and I'm ready for that because it needs to happen because I feel like employees have way more power than they think.
I love that. I love that you. I hate that you had to go through this whole process, but I love that that last straw you said, no, I'm now going to take control of what's going on to me because this has gone way out of control. And
Yeah.
I never intended it to get this way. What were one
Yeah.
of the first boundaries you had to set in that place to start feeling comfortable in that workplace?
Well, you know, I always associate setting boundaries with trying to remedy what's making you uncomfortable. You know, I consider it like a strategy, a tool. You know, setting a boundary is a tool, because the reason why we do it is because we're uncomfortable in some kind of way. Whichever way it is to you, you're uncomfortable and you don't like the way it makes you feel. So you're trying to set boundaries so that you can feel comfortable, especially if you're at work and you're at a job and you can't just quit. You have to pay your bills. So what do? You kind of you set boundaries. So a great example that I was thinking about a lot before we started this was my bosses used to take me into a room in front of everyone and they would go pick through all my work, and tell me that it was terrible. Like, and it was a way of, they had to beat you down to bring you up mentality. But they had like the shutters open. Everybody knew what I was in there for. It was very degrading. And it was just awful. And it was hurtful because I knew what I was doing. But I was open to suggestions. That's the thing, like I think that a lot of management teams, they just tell you what's wrong with your work and they don't really empower you and say, what you can do differently, or next time you should do this. It was just like I called it a beat down session back then. So I wrote an email. I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I wrote him an email and I said, I don't find these to be productive. And I would like it if we could just do this in writing. Because at this point, again, document. At this point, I was like, I'm documenting everything. And I said, I prefer that these meetings occur over email and in writing, and then we can address it accordingly then. So the emails weren't fun either. Don't get me wrong, but they were better than, especially if I wanted to cry, because there are a lot of times where I was like, oh my God, I worked so hard on that piece. And, that story was really touching. And I had like 10 people on the street stop me and say, oh my God, I can't believe you did that story. It's amazing. But yet when I come back from doing this terrible, like an infant was killed and, it was a terrible day covering this story, I come back and you're tearing apart my work over things that you didn't really need to, So I kind of felt like I took control of that situation, and it made my days there so much better because I wasn't embarrassed in front of my team. I wasn't dwindled down like physically in front of these people. They can attack me in the email, and a lot of the times I didn't really read the emails. I was like, you know what? I'm good. Thank you for your critiques. I'm good. Because I was like, I'm getting the hell out of here. Like there's no need for me to read this email and what's going on with you or what you think of my work. So that's the honest truth. So I definitely didn't read a lot of them. And that also improved my time there too, because I just kept focused and just kept working and focused on why I was there. And that's about it. Yeah, that's one of the really big boundaries that I set for myself, is saying it. I'm just gonna, keep it moving. And I do recommend that for a lot of people, if that's happening to you, just suggest that you just have your critiques, and in the podcast, I'm putting my quote fingers on critiques, or AKA beatdown sessions, via email, so that you can save the emails, and you can also respond in writing. Everything needs to be in writing, period.
And the words that you use to describe that time in your life are effective and productive. Those beatdown sessions were neither. And so therefore, they weren't, the reasons that they were doing them had nothing to do with you. It's for power, it's for all of the things that we talk about for bullying. Because if your supervisor, right? Yeah. If your supervisor's conversations with you is not productive or effective, then a boundary needs to be set, because I'm not here to be your little plaything. I am here to do a job that you hired me to do. At what point did you realize, okay, I've set all the healthy boundaries I can at this place. Growth isn't an option here?
Well, I think that talking to other people in the newsroom, like people would come up to me and they would say like, oh, it's your turn. Like, I know it's your turn. And I'm like, what do you mean? Why didn't you tell me that before I got here? Because that's the thing that these management teams don't understand. Like I literally picked up my life and moved to Dallas for this job. I left a lot of stuff behind. Yes, it was career growth. Yes, it was more money, but I would have stayed where I was if I knew that it was going to be like that. Like, that's not, if somebody's uprooting their life to come and work for you and give you their all, they should be treated with a little bit more respect. So I think talking to other people, understanding that this wasn't just not about me, this has been going on for a really long time. And once you realize that, when you are at a place, you either say, all right, I either got to find ways to change the whole culture here and, burn this place from the ground up, or I need to save myself. I chose to save myself. And I hate saying that. And I felt guilty, like there was really no change, with everything that happened. Unfortunately, I got a Twitter DM a few months ago saying that they're doing this to a new reporter. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, oh, it just broke my heart. And I told them to download the app. So now I have, it's great. And again, the full circle thing is that I have a solution for people. I can say, what really worked for me, or what I know will work for you, is just to document everything, oh no, I'm so right, that. But it really is, it sucks, to say, oh God, I took this job, I uprooted my life. It's either I burn this place down and start from the ground up, or I saved myself. And I saved myself. I have never been happier than to walk away from. Listen, I love being a reporter. I told amazing stories. I loved it. Who knows where it would have taken me, but the universe was telling me that I needed to walk away. And the thing is, like, if they made me sign this whole contract thing that, like, I couldn't work in that market for 2 years. So I couldn't get a job in that area, for a rival station or anything like that. So I felt like I kind of lost my way. I was very lost after I left there. So I was like, what am I going to do with my life? And I just kept it moving. It was really hard. Honestly, I was so happy to have my hair back and to be able to. It's terrible for any woman to just lose a lot of your hair. It's terrible. Like, if you've been through that, I'm really sorry. But it shouldn't be because of your job. Like, I just had a baby and I lost some of my hair. A lot of women who've been pregnant know that it's terrible after everything you go through as a pregnant woman. But it should be something like that, not because you're stressed out at work and you're literally falling at the top of your head. There's a serious problem going on. And I do recommend for people to really pay attention to your body and what it's telling you, not just your mental health, but your body. If you're not feeling good, your stomach is hurting all the time that's stress. It's stress. It's stuff that shouldn't be happening in your life. And I do wish that a lot of companies do burn it from the ground up, because a lot of people, you go to college and you work, or you don't go to college and you work on a craft and you perfect that craft and you're good at it. And then you get in these situations and you're forced to just hate your career. No, it's crazy what it can do to people. It really is. And that's why I just want to help people.
Yeah. And I cannot thank you enough for breaking it down for us like that. There are so many systems in place. And I said systems because a lot of the stuff is systemic, but these systems are in place. And there's no way that you, as the individual you are, can, okay, I'm going to burn all this shit to the ground and we're going to start anew here. Those people would have to make decisions. Everybody and their mom involved in that organization has to make decisions. It is a really tough pill to swallow when you realize there is nothing I can do but save myself. What were some of the things that you were telling yourself, or some of the tools you were using to save yourself when you moved out of that organization?
Well, during that time, I obviously journaled a lot, and I saved a lot of emails. I saved a lot of doctors' notes, everything. I saved everything. And that was a way of coping, because again, you could literally look at it and say, I'm not crazy. These things are happening. These things are happening. There's lies being said about me. They would say, like, last Thursday you did this. And I would look at my notes and I'm like, actually, I wasn't even working that day. And then when they saw the book, they were like, oh God, oh boy, But the best thing about track and assess is that they can't get in your phone and they don't know that you're logging them. And I think so much about what we were just talking about, like how you have to burn it down. The way that you burn it down is in their pockets, their money, So if there comes a time where you have 10 people in your newsroom with 10 track and assess reports ready to go to court, they might want to burn it down and rebuild, So that would be like, that would be like my goal. Something like if that started happening with a lot of corporations. These corporations don't move unless they lose money, unfortunately. But I was really, I was happy to leave. And I think that I had a great support system around me. A lot of people don't have that. And I recognize that and speaking to a lot of people. I do think that it's important to seek help when you need it. I'm very pro mental health. And obviously with the app, that's why I put the emoji calculation system in there. So you could just log how you're feeling. If you're depressed, you're anxious, put it in. And then at the end of the month, it tells you how many times you were anxious, how many times you were depressed, how many times you were happy. These things are important because you could easily just go to a mental health professional and say, look at this. Like, this is what's going on with me. Help me. Help. Get help. I wish that I would have gotten help back then. But after I left, I did go through therapy sessions that were very helpful. I definitely also, I started taking care of my body. I really started eating healthy, working out, just trying to do anything, just trying to sift through my thoughts, and what happened and where I was at and where I was going. And then it just, with time, you start to heal. Am I completely healed from it? No. I don't think that I'm the same person that I was before I went there, And I recognize that. It took me a long time to recognize that because I still want to be that go-getter, fighter, And I didn't want to admit that to myself, that I wasn't the same person. I wasn't the same go-getter. To me, I'm like, I worked so hard to get there. And then because in your life, especially like as a first generation Latina, they say, hey, you get what you put in. You work hard and you get to where you want to be. Your dreams come true, all these things. And I worked hard and that didn't happen for me. So here I am working hard again, putting in my dues again in another area. I had to really have faith in myself to do that again, but it takes time and you have to take your time. And yes, money's an issue and you have to work and pay your bills. It was really hard, but you have to take your time to heal. It's really not, it's not going to help you in the long run. And if you don't address it, it's going to creep up later in a really weird way. And you don't want that. You want to heal, you want to heal your body, your spirit, your soul, your everything. And you want to remind yourself that you're a professional and that you're damn good at what you do. And those people do not dictate that you are not good at what you do. So I think having faith in my work, having a good support system and acknowledging a lot of shit that I didn't want to acknowledge really helped me grow and transition out. And I'm still healing in many ways from it. And I think helping people through the app helps me heal too in a lot of ways,
Once again, I cannot thank you enough for bringing this vulnerability into this space because I'm crying at the it takes time part. When I moved out of a toxic workplace, I was like, okay, great. None of that was my fault. Cool. We got that down packed. I should be able to move on from this and start my brand new life because none of that shit was my fault. Sis, it does not work that way. It doesn't work that way at all. You have to heal. You have to process. You have to talk about all the shit that you brought into that organization that made you attracted to that organization in the first place.
Yeah. And a lot of these places, it's like hidden. It's like, if I would have gone there and they would have said, and I would have noticed things or somebody would have pulled me to the side. Like you see these memes on Instagram where they're like, a sign that says run, like, and the meme will say like somebody, when the new hire comes and takes the tour, run, I wish somebody would have done that for me, but that's not the way it happened. And I do feel like in life we're tested in a lot of ways. I came out stronger. I'm happier than I've ever been in my life. Doesn't mean that I'm still not healing in a lot of ways, but I am happier than I've ever been, but I had to really work hard on that myself. And a lot of that was admitting that a lot of it wasn't my fault, and B, that recognizing that there are a lot of, I know this sounds so horrible, but in management roles, there are a lot of like emotional predators out there. And it's terrible, especially for women and women of color, people of color. It's just an emotional predator thing that I've witnessed a lot. So I'm not making this up. And I've talked to a lot of people, a lot of experts. It's a real thing. And unfortunately, I was in a situation with a lot of emotional predators, and I wish them well. I think they're all still there, which is crazy. But they have a high turnover, and I think that's one of the things that you need to look at when you are applying for a job is, what's their turnover rate? What are their goals? I always ask, even back then, I asked, how many Latinas have come and gone. Why did you pick me?
Mm,
All of these things. I thought I asked all the right questions, but a lot of times you just don't know.
mhm.
You don't know.
Yeah. And just like you said before, as soon as your body starts telling you, as soon as your mind starts telling you, it's starting
Right.
to start putting in those boundaries, start getting
Mhm.
your support system together and start making that exit strategy. Cause you know already, we have been through this before. I'm not doing it again. Um,
Yeah.
you talked about therapy and you talked about your support system. Is there anybody that's a part of your support system still, or was a part of your support system back then that you'd like to give a shout out to?
Well, oh gosh, there were quite a few people that I leaned on that are no longer in my life, actually, from one reason or another. We're not going to get into all that, but I will give a shout out to them because I'm that mature of a person. There were people that were really there for me, and honestly, my family is fantastic. My family came from the Dominican Republic. When they came to the United States, it was like, get a job. You have a job. That's it. You know, I really took it to another level. I got an education. I was an on-air reporter. I was sitting there reporting on immigration and the number one station in Texas back then. And they were just so happy. And then they were like, "Wait a minute, you're leaving?" like, you know, I will say that with TV as well, side note to everyone, like it's not everything that glitters isn't gold.
Mm,
So please respect your journalists. Um, but they understood that it was for me and they saw that I was a completely different person and they were like, whoa. So shout out to my parents as well. Shout out to the people who are no longer in my life at that from that period. And shout out to my parents. Thank you.
oh my gosh, pour some out for them. I appreciate the growth you have shown.
Yeah.
We started here, and now we're here. And some of those
Yeah.
things had to fall off so that you could grow. But thank you
Yeah.
so much for being an example for us today. This is the
For
part of the
sure.
show where I open it up to the floor and see if anybody has any questions to ask you. You are
Sure.
now in the hot seat. You know everything about anything. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to come off mute or put
Okay.
it in the chat. I will kick off this section though by asking, when was the last time that you crossed someone's boundary?
Oh boy. I thought about that a little bit. So this happened recently. To one of my coworkers now. She she has taken I work in the digital space, so she was given a few tasks in the digital space, and I kind of not went over her head, but it just felt like she wasn't doing the job. I didn't want to tell her she wasn't doing a good job because after you leave a toxic workplace situation, you don't want to tell anybody anything because you're like, I don't want to be the bully, I don't want to be anything. And I just kind of went over her head and kind of like fixed stuff, whatever. And she kind of noticed, and I think it kind of hurt her feelings in that way. And I felt like I really crossed over a boundary that I shouldn't have. I should have just talked to her about it and maybe, been more supportive. But there was a time crunch and like all these things. So I felt terrible, but I definitely crossed into her boundaries. And I think I hurt her feelings and I did apologize. So that is something that I'm trying to work on. If somebody is coming into my space and they don't know much about my space, and sometimes with jobs, nowadays they give you like 4 jobs for each person. So I really was like, all right, I should be more helpful, and I learned from that too. So that's the best one I can come up with. But I don't remember really crossing anybody else's boundaries, and I hope I don't in the future. I'm very, very aware of that because I know how it feels.
And I love that you stated that you apologize. You realized that you did something and then apologized. You also described your space and the need to kind
Mhm.
of describe your space to the people that you're working with. Have
Yeah.
you ever had someone have that conversation with you like, hey, this is my space and this is how I operate?
Yeah, unfortunately, I work for a place that everyone wears multiple hats, and I love that, But sometimes it's like you don't know what you're talking about. And instead of being like you don't know what you're talking about, I'm more like let me help you understand why this
Mhm.
is the way that it is in my space. Growth, people, growth. Because at the same time, everyone's territorial about their position. They're kind of like, get out of here. What are you doing here? Shoot. But there's been times where I go into her space and I have to go into her space. It's not like, it's her decision or my decision. We have to share the work.
Mhm.
And I think it's best to just keep supporting each other and not just think that you're just here to do this and that's it, and they should sit there and do that. I think it's in this day and age, especially after COVID, you really need to learn as much as you can. You never know when things can happen with your job. And if you got to pick up the baton somewhere else and be creative and pivot, you might have missed an opportunity because, you didn't want to be in someone else's space and they didn't want to be in yours. Like it's a different time. So I am learning about other spaces too, which is very interesting. But I don't want to learn too much because, I already have enough work. Okay. Thanks.
Boundaries on boundaries.
Yes, gotta set a boundary. Don't give me any more work.
But I love that instead of saying, and I talk about this a lot on the show, like I used to be like, do you want to fight? Now I say, can we have a conversation about why you crossing my boundary makes me feel this way? But you let me help you understand why we're not going to do this again, or this is how we're going to operate. Wow, that's a powerful phrase. Are there any other powerful phrases that you use to kind of set boundaries with people in your workplace?
Not really. I do think that having an honest conversation is great. And I think that it'll improve your workplace relationships with people. And don't get me wrong, there's some people that you will not get through to. Like there's so many different kinds of people in this world. Like there's people that I think for me, like I said in the beginning, a boundary is a strategy, right? And what I do when I try to set a boundaries, I try to assess the situation, who I'm dealing with. And you have to pick and choose your battles. Is it worth having a discussion with this person? Because if not, is it going to aggravate me where I'm going to want to like start crying or I'm going to run out of the building? Or can I just set a boundary where I never really have to communicate with that person in that way, and we can still work together, and we can just move forward, and it doesn't need to be addressed, and let's just move forward and let me present. Are you capable of doing that? A lot of times I'm not. I need to tell you what's going on because it really bothers me. How do you get it off my chest? But you have to understand I'm going to be receptive to that because they're just not. They're just not that kind of person. So pick and choose your battles with people. And that's it. Boundaries are setting some kind of control, like you're kind of controlling your discomfort. You're controlling your discomfort. So do whatever you can to get out of that, even if it is not addressing it with somebody. So I do recommend that as well. I know that sounds probably counterproductive, but it's true.
That's hella productive, because me cussing you out is not productive for either of us. So I have to have a conversation with myself before I even have that interaction. Like, okay, is this going to be productive and effective? We said that before. Or is it going to be the latter? Because we want to work together in a productive and effective fashion where we're going to get all of our assignments, tasks, projects done together as a team. And if we can't do that, then me having this conversation is not going to help us do that anyway.
Right. That's very true. Just know your audience. Like they say in journalism, know your audience, and proceed accordingly and make sure that you're both comfortable at that point. Maybe you both don't want to ever talk about it, and that's fine.
Okay. And once again, these are human beings that we're talking about. They're all different. We're all very different. We all have different experiences, even though
boundaries.
So very different. And we just have to keep that in mind when we have these conversations. I appreciate you sharing all of your experiences here and all your insight. I cannot thank you enough. I would love to ask you, when you weren't setting boundaries, could you think of reasons why it was difficult for you to start, or why weren't you?
Honestly, as human beings, we go through so much in our personal lives. Like sometimes you just don't want to deal with it. You're just like, whatever. But the more you don't deal with it, the more it grows and it just manifests and it turns into something uglier than you probably would have ever imagined. And that's why I feel like it's important to set boundaries and to have conversations with people and to make yourself comfortable. There was a while, I had a coworker once where I didn't address it for so long and it really affected me. I was like, ugh. And then when we went out for drinks one day and I said, you know what? The fuck is your problem? Well, so many words. But we both had a really good honest conversation, even if it was over a glass of wine. And after that, it was great working with her. And sometimes you just I didn't want to deal with it. But sometimes you just have to deal with it. But again, like I said, you got to pick and choose who you're dealing with. There's some people that it's going to be great, like this one particular person, to really talk about it and get things out on the table and let's just move on. And then there's people that's like, this is not worth it. I don't even want to deal with this. So that's all I got for you, Katrina.
No, that is amazing. And sometimes it's just that simple. Like, what the fuck is your problem? Like, I feel it. I don't know if you feel it. You probably do, but I need this to get fixed so we can work together.
Yeah, because it's like it's not your decision that you're together.
Yeah.
It's your boss, and in this particular situation, my boss liked both of us and what we did. So we're stuck with each other. Right. So might as well make it. Let's squash it.
Mm-hmm. And even if we can't squash it, even if at the end of that glass of wine, we're like, I still don't fucking like you. Great. I'm gonna need you not to Slack me or don't email me. And we only work together in these parameters. So we can be cool.
There you go. Let's make this happen. Exactly.
Oh, amazing. See, so many gems have been dropped in this episode, and I cannot thank you enough. The last question I'm going to ask you for tonight is for those professionals out there that are probably the light bulb has gone off in their brain right now and probably like, oh shit, I'm in a toxic workplace, or oh shit, I need to start setting healthy boundaries. What would be the top 3 tips that you'd share with them?
Oh, I definitely thought of this throughout the day, and then I was like, you reminded me that I needed to talk about this. So I would say the first thing is to know and understand your limits, because that's the first thing, because there's times where you have to admit to yourself that you could be a little ridiculous. Okay. Maybe it's not them. Maybe it's you. And you need to understand that the world doesn't revolve around you, but you can make boundaries where everyone's happy. And that's what we've been kind of talking about. So it's not always about you. Know your limits and, understand that it involves people. It's not just you. The second thing I would say is make sure that your boundaries aren't hurting or affecting other people, So when you set certain boundaries and for instance, there was, this was many, many, many years ago, but there was a coworker of mine that I couldn't do it. And I'm not trying to say anything bad about anyone, but it was like water and vinegar. Like it just wasn't happening. So I stopped talking to her. This was obviously in my 20s and I was very mature, by the way. I stopped talking to her. And I never knew how much it really hurt her feelings. So while I was setting my boundaries, because I was like, I am stressed out by this person every day, I don't have anything to do with her, it really hurt her feelings. And I didn't find that out till later. And I did apologize as I was older and wiser and all this, whatever, but I felt really bad when I saw that, because I was just kind of making it about me and this person makes me feel this way. So I'm going to set this up in a way that I don't have to ever talk to this person. No. And it made her feel bad. And I felt bad about that. So be very careful and understanding that, you have to understand your limits and make sure you're not hurting anybody with those limits. And there's a way to figure it out that you don't have to hurt anybody. And the third one, I would say to stand up for yourself and learn to communicate your feelings accordingly. Set your boundaries in that way, but do it in a nice way. And don't do what I did and not talk to the person forever, unless that person really is that. I mean, you can work with some crazy people. Let's just be honest. I have, and I'm like, thank God that person didn't end up, smacking me at one point. But you really do. You want to be able to communicate. It just makes everything so much better with the people that you can communicate with.
With the people that you can communicate
again with. There's some people out there who just know your audience. So, but at the end of the day, again, I know that we're wrapping things up soon, and I just wanted to say document everything, even if it is a coworker, even if it is the whole situation, document it.
Mm-hmm. And this is not to say that, okay, we're documenting so that way if we need to take them to court, we can. This is just for your own well-being. This is so later on in life, you can look back at it and say, wow, one, look at the growth on me, look at me. And two, so I can really process how I feel about the situation, about this organization. Am I still growing here? Are they
Right.
capable of respecting my boundaries here? Am I being disrespected in this space? Really processing all of that. So that way, when it's time for you to save yourself, you
Mhm.
don't have to do all of that processing at once. Because taking from
Right.
both of us, it is fucking hard.
Yes, it is. And I will say the book that I showed you, the notebook where I was taking notes, that I still feel a little triggered by, um, it was just really, it was helpful to have it because there's no denying your own thoughts, you know?
Mhm.
And I look back on it as, when I look at it, it does trigger me, but I say, I feel like a survivor, you know? So even if you do document this and you don't necessarily take it to court and you're just like, I needed this to survive and
Mm.
to, process my thoughts, you will look at these reports and it will make you feel like a survivor because I know that's how I feel when I look at this rinky dink journal here. And I want everybody to know that they can survive this. So
I want everyone to know that, okay, that's the quote right there, that you can survive this. You are capable and empowered enough. And I know from this episode alone, you have things written down that's going to help you get through this process. So you can
hope
do
so.
this. We're rooting for you
Yes.
100%. Are there any last minute sprinkles you'd like to share with the audience?
No, just document everything. Track and assess. It's actually pretty cheap. I made it cheap because I'm cheap. It's $1.99 a month and $19.99 for the year. I will tell you that you can download it and you have a 2-week free trial, so you can definitely test it out. I appreciate any feedback. If there's anything that you would like to see on there, there's a resource center on there that you can find helpful tools. And I just tried to put everything in there that I knew that would help me back then, and that can help people moving forward, especially with the advice of a lot of experts from around the world. So I'm really excited for people to enjoy it, to really improve their lives and their workplaces and to own their truth and understand what's going on in their lives and move forward. And I'm here to help. I'm always available at joangel@trackassess.com. My door is always open if anyone just needs to talk or say, hey, what did you do when this happened and what do you think I should do with this? I'm always here. But the number one thing I will say is to document everything. There's so much power in documentation.
Mm. And somebody said, can you
Oh,
repeat what the app costs?
it's $1.99 a month or $19.99 for the year. And you do start with a 2-week free trial. So you can just test it out, start logging. You could track yourself, your own mental health. You could track a workplace. You could track a bully, how someone's making you feel. You can track whatever you want. You can track an injury. You're injured at the job, track and assess. No, all joking aside, you could literally track anything you want. I actually am tracking my sister and I are tracking my father because he's been a little forgetful. So it could be used for a couple of things, but this is definitely geared towards the workplace. So, but might as well use it as in many ways if you have to. So I hope you enjoy it.
Oh, that's so amazing.
And that it empowers you. Mm-hmm.
It sounds like it definitely will. Thank you so much for being here today.
Okay.
This was amazing. I have so many things written down. I'm gonna be shouting all these things to myself in the next couple of days, and I cannot thank you enough for sharing it with me.
No, you're welcome. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
All right.